The emergency lights flashed red across the massive chamber as delegates from 12 worlds gathered in heated debate. Ambassador Thylex slammed his four-armed fist against the crystalline podium, his blue skin darkening with frustration. The mining quotas were failing again, and the war against the Void Swarm was draining their resources faster than they could replenish them. The situation on Terminus 7 grows more desperate by the cycle, Thylex announced to the assembled representatives. We have lost 3 full expeditions trying to establish mining operations on that cursed world. The Alterns sent their best engineers, and they were dissolved by the acid storms within days. The Quarians tried to adapt with their silicon-based physiology, but even they could not withstand the chemical warfare that planet wages against all life. The massive holographic display at the center of the chamber showed Terminus 7 in all its terrible glory. The planet rotated slowly, revealing swirling clouds of methane and sulfur dioxide that covered nearly 40% of the atmosphere. Temperature readings fluctuated wildly from -60 degrees to 180 degrees Celsius. The surface appeared to writhe and shift as if the planet itself were alive and angry. The crystalline parasites alone make the world uninhabitable, continued the Bruthan representative, his rocky exterior scarred from his own failed mission to the world. They consume any material we know how to produce. Our strongest alloys become powder within hours of exposure. Even our energy shields fail when those creatures swarm. The Verdian observer, known for their analytical nature, projected additional data streams. The gravitational force is twice our standard measurement. The seismic activity registers constant earthquakes. The native predators, which we have designated as reapers, show intelligence levels that suggest coordinated hunting behavior. Every environmental factor on this world appears designed to eliminate visitors. Ambassador Stone from the newest member world sat quietly in the back corner, listening to the debate with growing interest. The human delegation had only been part of the Galactic Council for 6 months, and most species still viewed them as curiosities rather than serious contributors to galactic affairs. Their small blue-green planet had been discovered by accident when a trade ship's navigation system malfunctioned. Perhaps we should abandon the mining operations entirely, suggested the Kithran delegate, her translucent form shimmering with concern. Surely there are other worlds with the resources we need for the war effort. No, Thylex replied firmly. Terminus 7 contains the largest known deposits of quantum crystals in this sector. Without those resources, we cannot maintain the energy shields protecting our core worlds from the Void Swarm. The crystals are essential for our survival. The debate continued for hours as each species explained why their people could not survive on Terminus 7. The Alterans were too fragile for the temperature extremes. The Quarians could not process the toxic atmosphere. The Bruthans were strong but could not adapt to the chemical storms. Even the hardy Keltons had tried and failed, losing half their expedition to the planet's apex predators. As the discussion reached its 3rd hour, Ambassador Stone finally stood and cleared his throat. The chamber fell silent as delegates turned to look at the human representative. His species was still largely unknown to most of the council, having submitted their application for membership only recently. The Terran delegation would like to volunteer for the Terminus 7 mission, Stone announced calmly. The silence that followed was broken by what could only be described as laughter from several species. The Alteran ambassador's skin turned an even deeper shade of blue as he struggled to contain his amusement. With respect, Ambassador Stone, Thylex said carefully, your species has no experience with hostile environments. Your homeworld appears to be a garden paradise compared to the challenges we face. We cannot ask you to sacrifice your people for our cause. Stone smiled, an expression that seemed to unnerve several delegates. I appreciate your concern, but humans have extensive experience with challenging environments. We would be honored to attempt this mission. The Bruthan delegate leaned forward, his stone-like features creasing with worry. Ambassador, you do not understand. This is not a challenging environment. This is a death sentence. Every species that has attempted to Colonized Terminus 7 has suffered catastrophic losses. We are not talking about discomfort or hardship. We are talking about extinction. I understand the risks, Stone replied. But I also understand that your war against the Void Swarm requires those quantum crystals. If the Terran delegation can secure those resources, it benefits everyone in this alliance. The Kitharan representative shimmered with what appeared to be distress. But why would your species volunteer for certain death? What could you possibly gain from such a sacrifice? Stone considered his words carefully. My people have a saying, fortune favors the bold. We believe that challenges reveal character. If we can help our new allies while proving our worth to the Council, then the risk is acceptable. The debate shifted from whether the mission was possible to whether it was ethical to allow the humans to attempt it. Several delegates argued that sending the newest member species to certain death would reflect poorly on the Council's reputation. Others pointed out that volunteers had the right to attempt dangerous missions if they chose to do so. Very well, Thylex announced after consulting with his advisors. If the Terran delegation insists on attempting this mission, we will provide full support. However, we want it clearly recorded that this decision was made against our strong recommendations. The Council voted to authorize the human mission to Terminus 7. They would provide transportation, equipment, and supplies for 200 human volunteers. The timeline was set for immediate departure. As the war situation was becoming increasingly desperate. As the session concluded, delegates gathered in small groups to discuss the unprecedented decision. Most agreed that they had just witnessed the noble but foolish sacrifice of an entire species. The humans were brave, they concluded, but bravery would not save them from the countless dangers that awaited on Terminus 7. Ambassador Stone remained in the chamber after the other delegates had departed, studying the holographic display of Terminus 7 with intense concentration. The planet's violent weather patterns, extreme temperatures, and hostile wildlife reminded him of something familiar. Though he could not quite place what it was, tomorrow he would return to Earth to recruit volunteers for what the Council believed was a suicide mission. He suspected that many humans would be eager to accept the challenge, though for reasons the other species would never understand. The human delegation had not mentioned that their own homeworld was considered uninhabitable by most galactic standards. They had not explained that Earth's history included ice ages, mass extinctions, and natural disasters that made Terminus 7 look relatively peaceful. Most importantly, they had not revealed that humans had spent millions of years adapting to a world that constantly tried to kill them. The Council had just made what they believed was a compassionate gesture toward a doomed species. In reality, they had unleashed the most dangerous predators in the galaxy onto a world they mistakenly thought was uninhabitable. The colony ship Resilience shuddered as it entered the upper atmosphere of Terminus 7, its hull groaning under the stress of atmospheric entry. Inside the main cargo bay, 200 human volunteers checked their equipment one final time while the ship's automated systems announced their descent toward the planet's surface. The air recycling units worked overtime to process the toxic fumes that had begun seeping through the ship's outer seals. Torres adjusted her environmental suit and looked out through the reinforced viewport at the world below. The surface appeared to be covered in a yellowish haze that shifted and swirled like a living thing. Occasional flashes of lightning illuminated massive crystal formations that jutted from the ground like broken teeth. The landscape looked like something from humanity's worst nightmares, yet Torres felt oddly at home. Atmospheric readings confirm the Council's data, announced Webb, the mission's chief scientist. 40% methane, 20% sulfur dioxide, and trace amounts of compounds that would be lethal to most carbon-based life forms. Surface temperature is currently minus 37 degrees Celsius, but thermal imaging shows hot spots reaching over 150 degrees. The landing sequence began as the ship's engines fought against the planet's doubled gravity. Several volunteers were pressed back into their seats as the ship descended through layers of corrosive clouds. The external cameras showed acid rain beginning to fall, each droplet capable of dissolving most known materials within minutes. Remember your training, Torres called out to her team. This world is hostile, but it's not impossible. We've survived worse conditions during our training exercises in Alaska and the Sahara. The key is adaptation and teamwork. The ship touched down with a heavy thud that echoed through the cargo bay. External sensors immediately began registering seismic activity as the ground beneath them shifted and settled. The automated systems warned of approaching weather patterns that would bring stronger acid storms within hours. Deployment teams. Prepare for surface operations, Torres ordered. We have 6 hours before the next acid storm hits. That gives us time to establish a basic perimeter and begin site preparation for the permanent settlement. The first team to exit the ship wore specially designed environmental suits that the Council had provided. The suits were bulky and limited movement, but they offered protection against the planet's hostile atmosphere. As soon as the airlock cycled open, the team was hit by a wave of heat and chemical fumes that would have killed most species instantly. Air quality is exactly what we expected, reported Martinez, the team's environmental specialist. The suit systems are handling the toxins without any problems. Visibility is reduced due to the atmospheric haze, but we can work with these conditions. The surface of Terminus 7 proved to be as challenging as the Council had warned. The ground was covered in a mixture of crystalline formations and organic-looking growths that seemed to pulse with their own internal light. Each step produced a crunching sound as the team's boots crushed smaller crystal formations underfoot. Those must be the crystalline parasites the Council mentioned, observed Parker, pointing to a cluster of moving crystals about the size of insects. They're definitely attracted to our equipment, but the titanium steel alloy seems to be holding up better than expected. The team worked methodically to establish a landing zone while the ship's sensors monitored for signs of the native predators. The Reapers had been described as massive creatures with acid-based attacks and pack-hunting behavior. Every shadow and movement in the distance was treated as a potential threat. Movement detected 200 meters east, announced the ship's automated defense system. Large biomass approaching at moderate speed. Probable Reaper contact. The first Reaper emerged from the crystalline forest like something from humanity's prehistoric past. It stood nearly 3 meters tall with an elongated skull and powerful limbs that ended in razor-sharp claws. Its hide appeared to be covered in the same crystalline formations that covered the planet's surface, providing natural armor against most attacks. Just like the training simulations, Torres muttered as she raised her rifle. Remember, these things hunt in packs. Where there's one, there are usually more. The Reaper approached the human perimeter with cautious intelligence, testing their defenses with quick movements and retreats. Its behavior reminded Torres of pack hunters from Earth, particularly wolves testing potential prey for weakness. There. Parker pointed to movement in the crystal formations. 3 more approaching from the north. They're trying to surround us. The attack came suddenly as all 4 Reapers charged simultaneously from different directions. Their acid-based attacks created clouds of corrosive vapor that would have been devastating to most species. The humans responded with coordinated rifle fire and carefully placed explosive charges that had been designed specifically for this type of encounter. "Target the joints," Torres called out as she fired controlled bursts at the lead Reaper. Their armor is strong, but the articulation points are vulnerable. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes, but it demonstrated everything the humans needed to know about their new environment. The Reapers were dangerous and intelligent, but they followed predictable hunting patterns. Their acid attacks were devastating but had limited range. Most importantly, they could be killed with conventional weapons and tactical coordination. "Threat neutralized," reported Martinez as the last Reaper fell. "No casualties, minimal equipment damage. These creatures are formidable, but they're not invincible." The team continued their work establishing the settlement site as the first acid storm of their stay began to approach. The ship's weather sensors showed a massive wall of corrosive rain moving toward their position at nearly 50 kilometers per hour. "Time to test our shelter systems," Torres announced as the team retreated to the prefabricated structures they had assembled. Remember, this is just the first day. We need to prove that humans can not only survive here, but thrive. The acid storm hit with the force of a hurricane, but the human shelters held firm. The specially designed materials resisted the corrosive rain while the team inside monitored their equipment and planned their next moves. Outside, the storm raged with the fury of a world trying to kill everything on its surface. Environmental readings are stable, Webb reported from inside the main shelter. The storm is intense, but our systems are handling it without problems. We should be able to resume operations once it passes. As the storm continued outside, the team began to realize that Terminus 7 was challenging but not impossible. The acid rain reminded them of industrial pollution from Earth's cities. The temperature extremes were manageable with proper equipment. The hostile wildlife followed patterns that human hunters had been dealing with for thousands of years. You know what this reminds me of? Martinez said as he monitored the storm's progress. My grandfather's stories about working in the Alaskan oil fields. Brutal conditions, dangerous weather, and everything trying to kill you. But humans adapted and made it work. Torres nodded as she watched the storm begin to weaken. The worst part of their first day on Terminus 7 was ending, and they had not only survived but learned valuable lessons about their new home. Tomorrow they would begin the real work of establishing a permanent settlement. Outside, the storm gradually faded as the planet's violent weather patterns moved on to terrorize some other part of the surface. The human team prepared for their first night on the world that the Galactic Council had called uninhabitable. None of them realized that they had just accomplished something that 12 different species had failed to do. They had survived their first day on Terminus 7, and they were already planning how to make the next day even better. The quantum communication array in the council chambers buzzed with an incoming priority transmission from Terminus 7. Ambassador Thylex approached the device with heavy steps, expecting to receive the final casualty report from the human mission. 3 months had passed since the Terran volunteers had departed for the Deathworld, and standard protocol suggested that any survivors should have been evacuated by now. Message received from Terminus 7 mining operations, the automated system announced in its neutral tone. Classification, routine status report, priority level, standard operations. Thylex's forearms froze in mid-motion as he processed the unexpected classification. Routine status report meant the humans were not only alive but conducting normal operations. Standard priority meant they were not requesting emergency evacuation or medical assistance. The message classification made no sense according to everything the Council knew about Terminus 7. Display the transmission. Thylex commanded, his voice betraying none of the confusion he felt. The holographic display activated to show Torres standing in what appeared to be a well-lit command center. Behind her, humans moved about their duties with casual efficiency. The environmental readings in the corner of the display showed that they were indeed on Terminus 7, but the scene looked nothing like the desperate survival situation the Council had expected. Ambassador Thylex, this is Torres reporting from New Terra Base on Terminus 7, the human leader began with a slight smile. I'm pleased to report that our mining operations have exceeded all projected quotas by 300%. We've established permanent settlements at 7 different locations and have begun preliminary terraforming operations in the northern continent. The transmission continued with details that seemed impossible to believe. The humans had not only survived but were thriving on the world that had killed thousands of other colonists. They reported successful harvests from hydroponic gardens, the birth of several children, and the establishment of recreational facilities for off-duty personnel. Furthermore, Torres continued, we've made significant discoveries about the native ecosystem. The crystalline parasites can be processed into highly efficient construction materials. The reapers, when properly approached, show potential for domestication. We've already begun training programs for several juvenile specimens. Thylex replayed the message 3 times before summoning an emergency council session. The other delegates arrived with expressions of skepticism that gradually transformed into shock as they viewed the transmission. The Bruthan representative demanded immediate verification, certain that the humans had somehow falsified their reports. "The readings are accurate," confirmed the Verdian analyst after conducting a thorough examination of the transmission data. "The quantum signatures match Terminus 7's unique environmental markers. The humans are genuinely conducting successful operations on that world." The Kithran delegate shimmered with agitation. "But how is this possible? Every species that has attempted to colonize Terminus 7 has suffered catastrophic losses. The environmental conditions alone should have killed them within days." "Perhaps we should dispatch an observation team," suggested the Ultron representative. "We need to verify these claims and understand how the humans have achieved what we believe to be impossible." The Council voted to send a joint observation mission to Terminus 7, led by a team of Verdian scientists known for their objective analysis. The mission would include representatives from multiple species to ensure accurate reporting of the human colony's status. The observation ship arrived at Terminus 7 2 weeks later, its crew expecting to find a few desperate survivors clinging to life in makeshift shelters. Instead, they discovered a thriving civilization that had transformed the hostile world into something resembling a functional society. "The human settlement covers approximately 200 square kilometers," reported the lead Verdian observer. "They have constructed underground cities connected by sealed tunnel systems. The architecture is functional but shows clear signs of permanent habitation rather than temporary survival structures." The observation team watched in amazement as humans worked outside during acid storms, their environmental suits allowing them to function normally in conditions that would have been immediately lethal to most species. Children played in pressurized recreational areas while adults tended to crops that somehow grew in the planet's toxic soil. "The humans have established manufacturing facilities that process the crystalline parasites into construction materials," the observer continued. "They have also begun harvesting the native plant life for food production. Most remarkably, they appear to be enjoying themselves." The final observation report included video footage of humans engaging in competitive sports during their leisure time. The games took place in environmental suits and included activities that would have been considered extreme sports on most worlds. The humans laughed and celebrated as if they were participating in casual entertainment rather than survival exercises. "Their children are being raised in this environment," the Bruthan observer noted with what appeared to be concern. "And they treat the hostile conditions as normal background circumstances. The youngest generation shows no signs of stress or fear regarding their surroundings." The observation team's most disturbing discovery came when they attempted to interview the human colonists about their experiences. The humans consistently described Terminus 7 as challenging but manageable. They compared the environment to various locations on their homeworld, suggesting that Earth contained regions with similar or greater dangers. They speak of places called deserts, Arctic regions, and deep ocean environments, the Verdian analyst reported. According to their descriptions, Earth contains multiple biomes that would be considered uninhabitable by most council species. The humans appear to have evolved in conditions that prepared them for worlds like Terminus 7. The observation team's final report reached the council chambers just as the quarterly resource allocation meeting was beginning. The delegates gathered to review the findings with growing unease as they began to understand the implications of human success on Terminus 7. "The humans have not merely survived," the lead observer concluded. "They have established a permanent colony that shows every sign of long-term viability. Their mining operations are producing quantum crystals at rates that exceed our most optimistic projections. They have effectively solved the resource crisis that has plagued our war effort." The council chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed this information. The species that they had expected to sacrifice for the greater good had instead accomplished what 12 other civilizations had failed to achieve. The humans had turned a deathworld into a functioning society, What are the implications for galactic security? Asked the Alteron representative, his skin displaying the deep blue coloration that indicated serious concern. The Verdian analyst consulted his data before responding. If humans can successfully colonize Terminus 7, there are potentially thousands of worlds throughout the galaxy that we have classified as uninhabitable but which might be suitable for human settlement. The expansion possibilities are unprecedented. The session continued for hours as delegates grappled with the realization that they had seriously underestimated the newest member of their alliance. The humans had not only survived the ultimate test, but had fundamentally changed the Council's understanding of what was possible in terms of planetary colonization. As the meeting concluded, Ambassador Thylex found himself staring at the holographic display of Terminus 7, where human settlements now dotted the surface like points of light against the planet's hostile darkness. The world that had been considered a death sentence had become humanity's first stepping stone toward galactic expansion. The Council had sent the humans to die on an impossible world. Instead, they had created a new standard for what constituted a habitable planet. The implications of this discovery would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. Dr. Wells sat in his laboratory deep beneath the surface of New Terra Base, surrounded by geological samples and atmospheric readings that painted a picture of Terminus 7's violent history. The planet's core data revealed a world that had been shaped by countless natural disasters, extreme weather events, and environmental upheavals that would have destroyed most forms of life before they could evolve. The seismic patterns are fascinating, Wells murmured to himself as he analyzed the data streams flowing across his multiple monitors. This world has experienced more major extinction events than any planet in the Council database, yet life has not only survived but thrived in increasingly hostile conditions. His research had been focused on understanding how humans had adapted so quickly to Terminus 7's challenges, but the deeper he dug into the planet's history, the more he began to understand something far more significant: the environmental conditions that the Council considered impossibly hostile were actually mild compared to what Earth had experienced during its most turbulent periods. The atmospheric composition during the Permian extinction was remarkably similar to current conditions here, Wells noted as he compared his readings to Earth's geological record. Carbon dioxide levels, sulfur compounds, and temperature extremes that matched this world's normal weather patterns. The revelation hit him like a physical blow as he realized what the data was telling him. Terminus 7 was not an impossible world that humans had somehow conquered through determination and ingenuity. It was a world that closely resembled Earth, during the periods when human ancestors had first begun to develop the traits that would eventually make them the dominant species on their homeworld. "Good morning, Dr. Wells," Torres said as she entered the laboratory for their weekly briefing. "I hope you have some interesting findings to share. The Council has been requesting detailed reports on our adaptation methods." Wells turned from his monitors with an expression that Torres had never seen before. His face showed a mixture of wonder and something that might have been fear as he gestured for her to join him at his workstation. "Torres, I need to show you something that changes everything we thought we knew about this mission," Wells began, his voice unusually serious. "We've been approaching this completely wrong. We're not surviving against impossible odds. We're thriving in conditions that our species was specifically designed to handle." The data Wells displayed showed a side-by-side comparison of Terminus 7's environmental conditions with Earth's historical climate records. The atmospheric composition, temperature ranges, and geological activity patterns matched Earth's most challenging periods with remarkable accuracy. "Look at this," Wells continued, highlighting specific data points. "The acid rain here has a pH level of 2.3, which is actually less acidic than the rain that fell during Earth's Industrial Revolution. The temperature swings from -60 to +180 degrees Celsius, but our ancestors survived ice ages and heat waves that were far more extreme." Torres studied the data with growing amazement as she began to understand the implications. "You're saying that Earth was actually more dangerous than Terminus 7? "Not was," Wells corrected. Earth is more dangerous than Terminus 7. We've been treating this world like it's the ultimate challenge, but it's actually a relatively mild environment compared to what humans have been dealing with for millions of years. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the council chambers. Ambassador Thylex appeared on the main display with an expression of barely controlled panic as he addressed the human colony directly. Dr. Wells, we need to understand how your species has achieved such success on Terminus 7, Thylex began. The Council is facing questions about human capabilities that we cannot answer. Other species are beginning to request human assistance with their own colonization efforts. Wells exchanged glances with Torres before responding. Ambassador, I believe I can provide some context that will help explain our success. The truth is that humans evolved on a world that experiences conditions similar to or worse than what we face here on Terminus 7. The transmission quality flickered as Thylex processed this information. Are you saying that Earth is comparable to a death world in terms of environmental hostility? I'm saying that Earth is a death world by most galactic standards, Wells replied calmly. Our planet has experienced 5 major extinction events, countless ice ages, volcanic eruptions that blocked sunlight for decades, and atmospheric changes that would have killed most species before they could adapt. Torres stepped forward to address the council directly. Ambassador, humans don't consider Terminus 7 to be an impossible challenge. We consider it to be a normal environmental variation that requires standard adaptation procedures. The techniques we're using here are the same ones our ancestors used to survive on Earth. The transmission ended abruptly as Thylex apparently needed time to process this information. Wells and Torres stood in the laboratory, surrounded by data that proved humans were not heroic survivors overcoming impossible odds. They were simply doing what their species had always done, adapting to environmental challenges and finding ways to thrive. We need to compile a comprehensive report on Earth's environmental history, Torres decided. The Council needs to understand what they're dealing with when they work with humans. This isn't just about our success on Terminus 7. This is about understanding our place in the galactic community. The report that Wells and Torres prepared over the following weeks painted a picture of Earth that shocked the entire Council. The planet's history included natural disasters that made Terminus 7 look peaceful by comparison. Supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and climate changes that had driven countless species to extinction had only made humans stronger and more adaptable. The Yellowstone caldera is a supervolcano that could destroy most of North America if it erupted, Wells explained in his presentation to the Council. The Sahara Desert has temperatures that regularly exceed what we experience here. The Antarctic continent has conditions that make Terminus 7's winter storms seem mild. The Council's review of Earth's environmental data revealed a world that most species would classify as uninhabitable. The atmospheric oxygen levels were toxic to many species. The weather patterns were violently unpredictable, and the geological activity was constant and destructive. Your species evolved in an environment that we would consider a maximum security containment zone, the Verdian analyst observed. The fact that you call it home explains why you have succeeded where others have failed. The revelation spread throughout the galactic community as other species began to understand that humans were not just another member race. They were survivors from a world that had tested them with every conceivable environmental challenge and forged them into the ultimate adaptive species. We've been thinking about this mission completely wrong, Torres admitted during her final report to the Council. You didn't send us to die on an impossible world. You sent us to a world that feels like home. The challenge wasn't surviving Terminus 7. The challenge was understanding why other species found it so difficult. The implications of this discovery would reshape how the galaxy viewed both humans and the concept of habitable worlds. The species that had been considered newcomers and potential casualties had revealed themselves to be the products of the most hostile environment in known space. Earth had not just produced survivors. It had produced a species that could turn any world into home. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the pre-dawn hours as delegates from across the galaxy gathered to address what many were calling the human problem. Ambassador Thylex stood before the assembled representatives with data streams showing human expansion across 17 different worlds that had previously been classified as uninhabitable. The situation has escalated beyond our original projections, Thylex announced, his voice carrying the weight of species-wide concern. The human colony on Terminus 7 was just the beginning. They have now established settlements on worlds that we considered impossible to colonize, and they are succeeding at rates that defy all logical analysis. The holographic display showed a map of the galaxy with new human settlements marked in red. Each dot represented a world that had been written off as uninhabitable, yet humans had turned them into thriving colonies within months of arrival. The pattern suggested an expansion rate that would fundamentally alter the balance of galactic civilization. The frozen wastes of Arcturus Prime now support a human population of 50,000, continued the Alteron representative, his skin showing the deep blue coloration that indicated severe stress. The lava fields of Vulcan's heart have been transformed into geothermal energy farms. Even the methane swamps of Titan's Rest are being converted into agricultural centers. The Bruthan delegate shifted his massive stone-like form as he addressed the assembly. Our scouts report that humans are not just surviving on these worlds. They are terraforming them. They are taking the galaxy's most hostile environments and making them suitable for other species to inhabit. The implications were staggering. The Council had spent centuries mapping the galaxy and classifying worlds based on their habitability. For known species, humans had arrived and rewritten the classification system by proving that 90% of uninhabitable worlds could be colonized with the right approach. We are receiving requests for human assistance from species across the galaxy, the Kithran representative reported, her translucent form shimmering with agitation. The Zilani have asked for help colonizing the asteroid fields of the Outer Rim. The Hive worlds want human advisors for their expansion into the scorched zones. Even the Crystalline Collective is requesting human consultants for their deep space mining operations. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent transmission from the frontier worlds. The message came from Admiral Pierce, who had been leading the human response to the Void Swarm's latest offensive in the Outer Territories. Council members, this is Admiral Pierce reporting from the Hadrian's Wall system, the human officer announced with grim satisfaction. I'm pleased to report that human forces have successfully repelled the Void Swarm's advance on 3 fronts. The enemy has retreated to positions beyond the neutral zone. The transmission continued with tactical details that sent shock waves through the council chambers. The Void Swarm, which had terrorized galactic civilization for decades, had been stopped by human forces operating in environments that other species couldn't even visit without life support systems. The Void Swarm has adapted to fight against species that require controlled environments and technological support, Pierce explained. They were not prepared to face an enemy that treats hostile environments as home field advantage. Our forces have established forward bases on worlds that the Swarm considered uninhabitable, giving us strategic positions they cannot attack. The Council realized that the human expansion was not just changing the map of habitable worlds, it was changing the fundamental nature of galactic warfare. Species that had been limited to fighting in controlled environments now had allies who could operate anywhere in the galaxy. What do the humans want in return for their assistance? Asked the Verdian analyst, his logical mind seeking to understand the human motivations. Ambassador Stone, who had been quietly observing the proceedings, stood to address the assembly. We want what any species wants: the opportunity to build homes for our people and contribute to galactic civilization. We're not seeking to dominate or replace anyone. We're offering to help settle worlds that no one else can use. The response seemed too reasonable to be believed. The Council had expected demands for territory, resources, or political concessions. Instead, the humans were offering to solve problems that had plagued galactic expansion for millennia. But surely your species has some agenda, the Alteron representative pressed. No species provides assistance without expecting something in return. Stone smiled, an expression that had become familiar to the Council over the past months. Ambassador, we're getting exactly what we want. You're giving us access to worlds that we can turn into homes. For humans, that's the greatest gift imaginable. The session continued for hours as delegates struggled to understand the new reality. The species they had expected to sacrifice for the greater good had become the most valuable allies in the galaxy. The humans were not just helping with colonization efforts, they were fundamentally changing what was possible in terms of galactic expansion. The economic implications are staggering, reported the Kithran trade representative. Human colonies are producing resources from worlds that we never expected to yield profits. The quantum crystal output from Terminus 7 alone has doubled our energy production capacity. The discussion was interrupted by another urgent transmission, this time from the deepest regions of unexplored space. The message came from a human exploration team that had been investigating reports of void swarm activity in the Dark Nebula region. Council members, this is Explorer Team Alpha reporting from the Umbral system, the team leader announced. We've made contact with survivors from the lost colony of Haven's End. The colonists have been hiding in the radiation storms of this system for over a decade, but we've successfully evacuated them to safety. The transmission revealed another capability that the Council had not anticipated. Human ships were operating in regions of space that other species considered absolutely lethal. The radiation levels in the Dark Nebula would have killed most crews within hours, but humans were conducting rescue operations and exploration missions as if the environment posed no significant threat. How many more surprises do these humans have? Muttered the Bruthan delegate, his rocky features showing what might have been exasperation. The answer came sooner than expected as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human teams were operating in the cores of gas giants, exploring the surfaces of neutron stars, and establishing research stations in the vacuum of space itself. Each new discovery revealed capabilities that redefined what the Council thought they knew about the limits of biological life. The humans are not bound by the same environmental constraints that limit other species, the Verdian analyst concluded after reviewing weeks of data. They appear to be capable of adapting to any environment given sufficient time and resources. Ambassador Stone nodded as he addressed the growing concerns of the Council. Our species has learned to be flexible. When we encounter a challenge, we adapt our methods rather than abandoning our goals. It's not that we're immune to environmental dangers. We just have extensive experience in overcoming them. The revelation prompted a fundamental shift in galactic politics as species began to reconsider their expansion strategies. Worlds that had been abandoned as lost causes were suddenly valuable real estate. Trade routes that had been impossible due to environmental hazards became viable transportation corridors. The humans have effectively doubled the habitable space in the galaxy, reported the Council's chief economist. Worlds that we classified as resource sinks are now producing profits. Systems that we avoided due to environmental hazards are becoming major trade hubs. The transformation was not limited to colonization and resource extraction. Human success had inspired other species to reconsider their own limitations and develop new approaches to environmental challenges. The Quarians began experimenting with hybrid technologies that combined their silicon-based physiology with human adaptation techniques. The Alterans started training programs that taught their people to function in hostile environments. We are witnessing the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization, announced the Council's senior historian. The human arrival has not just added another member species. It has fundamentally changed what we consider possible. The session reached its climax when Ambassador Stone presented the Council with humanity's proposal for the future. The document outlined a comprehensive plan for galactic expansion that would utilize human capabilities to open up thousands of new worlds for colonization by all species. We propose the creation of joint exploration and colonization teams, Stone explained. Human crews would establish initial settlements on hostile worlds, then work with other species to develop infrastructure that supports broader colonization efforts. Everyone benefits from expanded living space and resources. The proposal was ambitious beyond anything the Council had previously considered. It suggested transforming the galaxy from a collection of isolated civilizations struggling for limited resources into a unified community with unlimited expansion potential. What guarantees do we have that humans will not simply claim these worlds for themselves? Asked the Alteron representative, voicing the concern that many delegates shared. Stone's response was simple and direct. We don't want to claim worlds for ourselves alone. We want to claim worlds for civilization itself. A galaxy where every species has room to grow and thrive benefits everyone, including humanity. The debate continued through multiple sessions as delegates grappled with the implications of the human proposal. The species that had arrived as supplicants seeking membership in the Council were now offering to reshape galactic civilization itself. The final vote was closer than expected, but the proposal passed with support from species across the political spectrum. The Council authorized the creation of the Galactic Expansion Initiative, with humans leading exploration efforts and other species contributing specialized knowledge and resources. As the session concluded, Ambassador Thylex found himself standing beside Ambassador Stone, looking out at the stars through the Council chamber's massive viewing port. The galaxy that had seemed so small and crowded just months ago now appeared vast and full of possibilities. You realize that this changes everything, Thylex observed, his tone mixing wonder with concern. The balance of power, the nature of expansion, the very concept of habitable space? Stone nodded as he watched a human exploration ship depart for the distant frontier. That was always going to happen once we joined the galactic community. The only question was whether the change would benefit everyone or just humanity. The Galactic Council had sent humans to a Deathworld as a test of their commitment to the Alliance. Instead, they had unleashed a species that would transform the galaxy itself. The age of limited expansion was ending, and the age of unlimited possibility was about to begin. In the depths of space, human ships were already heading toward worlds that other species had never dared to approach. The galaxy was about to discover that there was no such thing as an uninhabitable world when humans were involved.